And this is the ledgerscale Internet of Value Open Forum. Now, ledgerscale Foundation was founded with two goals in mind. One, we want to provide educational services to not only our community, but to the entire digital asset community, and to help scale up the number of brains that understand how distributed ledger technology works. And two, we intend to one day run hardware to provide infrastructural support to the distributed ledger technology networks that we believe are ESG friendly and running a form of decentralized consensus. Now we host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, and on Wednesday we host a focused topic space from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. If I could just ask if everyone could give us a follow at ledgerscale on Twitter, turn those notifications on so you know we're going live, and as well as at the bottom right, if I could ask if everyone could like and retweet the space that said hopefully that other people can find this information valuable in the future.
Yeah, and then also on YouTube, everything is streamed live from ledgerscale to YouTube, so you can see it in the future. And the whole point here is just to engage the community. So please, anybody, everybody, if you want to speak up, if you're curious about something, I'm guarantee somebody the same question. And if you do speak up, just be cordial and welcome to the space. Thanks for joining.
I'm just sending some invites up if you guys want to come up, if you have any questions or topics you'd like to speak about. I think we should kind of probably jump off of what we were having in the other space right before we hosted this ledgerscale open forum. I think we were talking about security and different aspects of the systems that are being built right now. And Crypto Palace. I don't know if I've seen you up yet, so welcome up. If you'd like to share, go ahead.
Hi, how you doing? I just wanted to know, I've heard lots of rumours. Has the clock restarted? And if so, how long before XLS20 starts up?
So the clock hasn't been started. There are validators that have been upgrading. Let me go check for you real quick. Let's see if the website has been updated. But Vet came up. He probably knows a little bit more because he upgraded his validator just before. I don't know if you saw Vet. How many other validators have upgraded to the 1.9.4 yet? And once we hit over that 80% consensus again on that 1.9.4 update amendment that has been launched, then we start over that 2 week process where we'll have that they'll have to hold that over 80% consensus, and then the amendment will go live.
Awesome. That's all I wanted to know, really. Just wanted to know when that all started up. Thanks for your space. It's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming up, and if you're wondering, and I'm sure somebody else is, so I thank you for asking. But it's good because you know what, the code is out, the amendment is out, so we're really just waiting for the validators now. So it's really just a waiting game for them to realize what's going on.
So I just wanted to add, I think the 1.9.4 is just to fix that on its own once it's updated. So I think what validators and nodes are waiting for is for people to update that up to that fix. That itself is not combined with the 1.9 is the 0.2, which is the actual XLS20 integration. So once enough people update to 1.9.4, then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Vet, then that's when people will start voting again for the 1.9.2.
No, I think the default flag yes on it. So as soon as everybody votes for the 80% consensus on the 1.9.4, 1.9.2 would be dragged in with it, and so all at once.
Got it.
It should be. Vet, do you want to correct me if I'm wrong, please?
Sorry.
Or
what
maybe
was
we're
the question?
both wrong.
When
About-
1.9.4 is upgraded, right? It that'll be the amendment, the XLS20 amendment. Everything's said and done right there, right? It's a combination of 1.9.2 plus the fix, right? Basically.
No, it isn't actually. It is just the fix. Was very weird to me as well, but they want to push it. This is the thing. If they would have done it this way, I think it would take even longer. So the way that they did it is basically, so last time, if you remember, we did it with the package. We packaged the amendments, the fix and everything together and had one amendment. And this time they choose to, because last time they had two options, packaging or doing default yeses, right? And they decided to do packaging. And this time they decided to do default yes. So what's happening is you update to 1.9.4, then you try to get as many people as possible to 1.9.4, and many have automatically the auto updater, so they automatically update to the newest version without anyone's doing. And you saw a bunch of people have the newest version updated, even though they did nothing. It's just because they said they were validators or nodes. It's usually nodes, but also many validators, funny enough. And so they update to the newest version, and when they do, they automatically vote as well. So you can see this as well. They automatically vote, which is very convenient, from a network update perspective, and for sluggish updaters. So this is what's happening, and the plan is get the fix in, and then vote for XLS 20. Then vote for XLS 20. This can happen with a delay of 1 or 2 days. It could even be closer, but to be safe, you want to have some distance to it, so to speak. So you get the fix in, and you vote then for XLS 20. This is right now the plan. Thing is, and what you see, that I think Alloy also said this, and I did this as well. Not that my vote matters anyway, but still. Alloy, for example, some others have done the way that they voted for the vote, for the fix, which is automatically, but they vetoed. They vetoed even the fix. So they voted to 1.9.4. They updated to 1.9.4, but they vetoed for the automatic for the default yes. Because the thing is, you run with this also into kind of an amendment block issue, right? Because you have auto updates and default yes. So when every validator updates to 1.9.4, and luckily not many, there are just a few who have auto updater in, they would amendment block the network to 1.9.4, in which you don't want to have this. So this is right now what people are doing. So they want to get the fix in, and then they want to vote for XS 20. Once the fix, this is a good rule of thumb. Once the fix has above 80% vote, so the clock starts for the fix, you will probably see within a day or two, or even within a couple of hours, votes starting to pour in for XLS 20. And you can see on XRP scan on the amendment tab, you can follow the fix one, for the amendment for the fix. And if you see this over 80%, then the clock starts, and basically people they want to have people updated already sufficiently. Yeah. I mean, you guys see it's with the whole voting and everything. I don't blame anyone who gets confused or whatever, because there are many things to it. It's a whole, it's like a perfect orchestra to people voting for this, then they veto for this for some reason, and it's not unanimous or whatever. Because, for example, you see Rippleton votes for XS 20 and the fix simultaneously. This is only possible in my opinion, if not everyone is doing it. If everyone was doing it, then they would immediately amendment block everyone, and also it's very fine tuned. They obviously communicate, hey, I'm gonna do this. Whatever you do with this information, they don't plan the voting, so to speak, right? So they don't rig the the voting or whatever, but they communicate with others. Hey, I'm voting now for this, and whatever you do with this information, it's up to you. And probably Republican said, hey, I'm going to vote for this, and probably others said, okay, if you vote already for this, or a bunch of people vote for this, we cannot vote for this, so I have to hold back, because then we amendment block everyone. So you get a gist of this.
Okay, so still both of them have to be voted on still then.
Yeah, both have to be voted in. The fix, as I said, is default. Yes, I think they promise, or they think this promises a faster, voting process for the fix, but it doesn't have to be necessary. Yeah, I mean, if you see, there are some validators on the UNL who have auto updater in, which is not good. Like for everyone else, like every other validator, every other node, it's okay because you are not critical. But default automatic updaters for the UNLs is kind of tricky, because if it's a bad Ripple D version, or there's a bug found and everyone updated already to it because they have auto updater set, then yeah, you run into issues. So yeah. But otherwise they cannot get their, I think so, they cannot get their hands on these people, because some of them are companies, right? And they have like an IT department who updates or goes through these things like every month or two, right? Or even longer periods, and you cannot rush this process for them, because they have like their own set of rules and procedures. Yeah.
I got a question. What's the sort of the process for an amendment to go up for voting? Because if you're telling me that, once people update to that version, then that once they update it, it's an automatic yes for that version, I guess for that fix. Then, I mean, I'm sort of concerned on what goes up for voting, right? Or what people can auto update to. So what's the process for somebody or for something to, be available for someone to auto update to?
Yeah, so usually things are born as an idea, right? They have either an issue to fix something, or an improvement, and I think for us it's the XLS, whether the prefixes of the GitHub discussions and all this repos where they have XLS blah blah blah, and those are usually like what for other the what is it, EIPs or the BIPs, the Ethereum improvement proposals, like the improvement proposals and all that. So these things are born as an idea or improvement proposal, and from there on, the maintainers of Ripple D, or the coders basically, who usually are trusted and have a good track record, and they not necessarily work at the XRPL Foundation, because Ripple D is now in the hands of the XRPL Foundation, the GitHub repo of Ripple D. But those maintainers who are very well versed with the Ripple D code that powers all these nodes and basically the XRPL, they come together, or they exchange ideas and say, hey, how can we implement this, and is this something that has a lot of traction, right? So XS20 has no benefit per se to the ledger, right? So it's not a fix or something, right? It's not something urgent that they have to bring up for voting, but it's an improvement that they think it's worthwhile. but only if it gets enough traction or if it's deemed really like, yeah, it's helping. And it got a lot of traction. People were excited about this, so people thought, okay, now we can code it. Because first it was just a spec, right? They're saying, hey, this is what we want to have, and then they coded these things. So usually, these things are born as an idea or a fix, or whatever. Then these maintainers are get together and code this stuff and bring a new Ripple D version out, right? The new Ripple D version, what people always wait for, um, which contains the new additional code for this amendment that they bring up for voting, and then people or the community can say, hey, this is something we want to have or not, right? So if you say, or if you ask, yeah, I'm concerned about the stuff that gets there. The thing is, everyone can code this stuff as an amendment and propose basically it to get merged to a new Ripple D version that then gets released. But not necessarily it has to be, right? So if you say, hey, I want to double the XRP amount that the circulating supply and everything, like from 100 billion to 200 or 500 billion, you can do this, you can code this, but it's very unlikely that people say or kind of approve your changes there. It might even in some cases it can be even go to as an amendment. So you pass the merge step. So you actually found people who say, yeah, this is a good idea or something, and they merge it, and they propose this, right? And then the community would vote on with the validators. So you have a double check there as well. Yeah, I mean, you see this with many amendments. There are, I think, some amendments who kind of not have so much traction, other amendments who have traction. But in general, if it's a good amendment, or let's say good amendments usually found their way to a new Ripple D version. If you want to double the XRP amount, supply and all that stuff, unlikely to happen. So malicious stuff is very, very unlikely to get any traction or to which why people are saying that then, yeah, it's centralized and all this, or like why can I not do these things? I mean, obviously not, because even the maintainers and all these people, they have a vast interest in XRP, right? So if you say, hey, let's double or triple the supply, it hurts. It's not about price necessarily. It's about the also reputation and integrity of the network, about the continuity. So if you do such vast changes to the network, what does this tell to other people or organizations? Like, is this something you can build on for the next 10 years? You don't know what variables are going to change then again. So it's unlikely bad things will get any traction, in my opinion, for a good reason. And it's not about centralization or anything. It's just about, it just doesn't make sense.
Well explained. Thank you very much for going into so much detail with it, Vet. It was awesome, man.
Yeah, I want to add to this. It's really complicated because there are so many parts who play together into this, and it's really not easy to get your head around, because sometimes things change, and every amendment is kind of different. Like this one, like they decided for default yes. Now you can say, hey, why default yes? Why not something else? But it's discussed. It's discussed openly on GitHub. And you can tag or you can DM these maintainers or even the validators, because they have also kind of say, right? Um, you can DM them and ask them, hey, why you were doing this, or is this? Can you explain this to me? Like, obviously in a good manner. We have seen some people in the past kind of pressuring people for answers why they do stuff or whatever. It's like harassing, not in a educational manner. But if you ask them just friendly, hey, can you explain this to me in detail, whatever, they can explain it to you like way better than I did. And they kind of will go into detail with this.
Yeah, if you want to go into further detail, please.
Oh no! I mean, they I mean, they would go into detail with you if you would ask them 100%, because they love the XRPL. They do daily stuff with it, and they're just all in all breathing the XRPL. So they happily to go into heavy details with your question. Not necessarily that you would get smarter out of the conversation because of the amount of information they're gonna drop on you, but yeah, it's worthwhile. If you're interested in all this technical stuff, I can recommend to go to the GitHub repo of the XRPL Foundation and GitHub account, and go into the RippleD repo and just check it out. I mean, even if you don't interested in RippleD, if you're interested into the automated market maker, there's almost daily commits and changes that they do there. So if you want to check out that. As a side note, I don't know, not to derail the conversation about this, but the DevNet about the automated market maker is also, I think we talked about this some, I don't know, but the DevNet for the automated market maker is live. So this is pretty awesome. It's, I think, invite only right now. If you request, you get it, but it's just not open. So I'm excited for this.
Did you request to get on there?
I did request to get on there, but they haven't opened up for me yet. I think. I don't think there's really any requirements to get, just they don't want to have it publicly. So if you just ask, hey, can I get the information, you get it's a Google Doc, and if you request access to it, then you can eventually
that'll just keep the bots out for the most part.
Yeah, and yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, you have there probably the access for the servers and for the network, and it's probably not a big one, so you don't want people to spam things there, right? Or bots running there. So you just want people who test out stuff, but not ruin the network.
And that goes into like the conversation that I remember I saw you, and it was you, Chris, and Rippleton in there, and we were talking about the botnets and what the characteristics look like. And I liked how Rippleton went into it, because it was just like, it wasn't just testing them, but it was kind of like, do you know what they're actually doing, to the point where it's kind of like making client devices act as zombies upon DDoS attacks and then some. So them being able to explain that not just to me but to everyone else in that space during that time was actually pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, bots are a huge part of the network, not even like in a bad manner, but they do exist. They put load on the network because it's like artificial, just obviously, and but they're needed. If you say automate market makers or just market makers in general, trading bots and all this, they do exist. People using them and all this, but it's really interesting to see how sophisticated some networks are, and what people are coming up with. It's interesting. It's 100% interesting, and for people who monitor the ledger, like Rippleton, he really has an eye on all of that. It's probably very interesting to see this playing out, because he was like saying that he identified some bots, because after each transaction they were like saying, thank you Elon Musk, thank you Jeff Bezos. It's
Yeah, I remember he was talking about that. I was like, yeah, it sounds like a botnet. That's where I kind of came out. I was like, are you talking about botnets? 'Cause it sounds like you're talking about botnets without really say you're talking about it. But no, it's awesome, and thank you for the transparency you're providing. Sometimes we really got to hear what's really going on, especially like from a validator standpoint. It's different when you're actually working with the node itself and other validators, and you're having to stay up to date with everything and taking everything into perspective. Like you were saying, if everyone auto updated, you know to an update, but there was a bug, that's a known vulnerability, and now the entire system, or the entire systems are compromised in a sense, because they already know what the attack vector is going to be based off of that bug. So it's more so we want to make sure we slowly integrate everybody into this new update, but make sure we kind of hash out what needs to be hashed out, so that you know everything's just about fail safe as soon as you're ready to update. You shouldn't have to worry about 2-3 bugs if you're updating something to get rid of those bugs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, with many people who, I mean, the thing is, see, for it's always like about the, or it's often about the validators on the unique node list, which is totally correct, because essentially we listen to their validations and what they do, and we basically just replicate and echo these. This is basically what we do. And but for us validators who are not on the unique node list, or on that unique node list, because you don't really know on which lists you are and all this, but for those people, and there are like a handful, I would say, who are kind of engaged with all of this, and they try to think about stuff, what makes sense for them. Some people might, you have the fast updaters, the slow updaters, and like the last people who the last call people last minute, and everyone is like kind of plays maybe their role or do their stuff, especially like the fast ones like Rippleton. He's usually like a very, very quick updater, quick in all of these responses. Those are usually who spot very early, like if something is faulty or not, because you need also these people, right? You cannot just wait and wait and wait and wait. You need these people who just jump in, right? Just jump in and see what's up, and report back basically to the squad, right? Hey, to the platoon, whatever you want to have. Hey, this is what's going on. We need to fix this or that, and people can just see what they're gonna do, and so it's very strategic in that sense. And also the cool thing is, as you said, you kind of get engaged with the ledger, so and test things out. So whoever is really versed with this technical stuff, you don't need to code at all. But if you're like um, sufficient in Linux, I would say, or you even a sysadmin or something, definitely check it out. It's fun to play with. You definitely gonna provide tons of value in terms of your feedback, um, and also obviously the decentralization aspect is huge, and it just helps, right? Um, I mean, if you run just a node or whatever you run, right, infrastructure, it really kind of educates people in a different way, because there's still the bias of, oh, the XRPL, yeah, this is only run by bankers, and this is like this holy thing that's far above us, and nobody can touch it. But then you see some normies run infrastructure, and it's kind of like, how can this be possible, right? Isn't that supposed only to be Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, and now this dude is it's really good from an educational standpoint to get people questioning, like, hey, is this real or is this fake? Because I heard like only bankers and the world banks are running these. This is highly complicated. You need to be David Schwartz and all that. No. This is like this and this, and check this out. And it's a rabbit hole for a lot of people, because they never engaged or thought about this.
Well, I'm gonna do set up a validator and actually hardware, and not just like on a cloud or a VPS or something. And I've never done anything like that. So we're gonna do that with ledgerscale, and kind of hopefully make some educational material, and I'll be the like idiot, the stunt idiot who has honestly not much a clue what the hell, who's gonna just figure it out and set it up. But like, it's really way out of my wheelhouse. I mean, I understand financial markets and stuff, but in terms of like setting up hardware and configuring system, like it's not what I do.
Yeah, I mean, we don't talk price here, but you see, for example, definitely with the XRP doing very, very well recently and continues to do very well, there comes more attention to it, and people are, especially because everything else is kind of down and not really interesting, and people looking to what's trending right now, even though they have no interest in it maybe, but they see, hey, the XRP is pumping or whatever. Like, what is XRP? Oh yeah, you can just hold it. It's just XRP. Oh no, there are tokens on it. Oh, okay. What else? Oh, there's amendments to it. There's NFTs and the DEX and all this. Like, they get overwhelmed with this and suddenly get like a light bulb moment. And well, this is very important because right now, where you have time, where and all these rooms are kind of small, you can ask questions. It's more silent. Um, it's definitely a good time to educate yourself in this and to get really, really
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
watch when the bull market comes back. The head count in these spaces are like triple, quadruple.
exactly. It will get very, very noisy, and you will be asked, right, because you are the OG, so to speak, and you will be, yeah, sought after. You will be asked, hey, what's up with this? Can you ask this? And you will have a head start of like all this crowd is coming in. So be aware of this, right? Be aware of this, and don't miss out to educate yourself for even things that you may have not so much interest in it, but hey, you don't know when it comes in handy to answer a question or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good I think the best way to handle that is actually more around like building a community, because like there's stuff that like Gene knows that I'm just not going to know, man. Like, I'm not going to study that to that degree, right? There's things Death knows about Flare and stuff that I'm not gonna. I don't. I mean, I try, but he just knows better. Like, so, there's a lot of people that come in here that know their stuff, and I think it's good, because then it's like then like somebody will know the answer, right? So if a person has a genuine question, somebody will know the answer, and then we all get to learn, which is cool.
Oh,
And if somebody's not in here, we'll probably know somebody that knows the answer, and we can find out later, and like sort of get back to you, kind of thing. That's one of the funny things when they were one of the things they were saying in sales training is they were like, if someone asks a question and you don't know the answer, just say like, that's a great question. Let me get back to you, and just like write it down, and then it gives you a reason to call the person back with the information that they're interested in. It can help close the deal. Even if you
And
do know the answer, sometimes it's good to just say, that's it's a great question. I'm not sure. Let me get back to you. It just gives you an excuse to get back to them.
and see, I've talked to some other people, like Daniel from Casino Coin, And they see this also, like with the recent activities of XRP, as a opportunity and a chance for them to basically get into networks, get into discussions, get into circles, get into all these circles basically who are really beneficial for a project or a ledger, because you get included in talks, in discussions, in listings of big exchanges, just because of the fact that right now XRP is doing so well compared to other blockchains or chains. And all these people, especially exchanges, they are not engaged with tribalism. They don't care, like if Ethereum, XRPL, Algorand, whatever. If there's volume, if there's activity on the XRPL, they're
Yeah.
happily to list all this and everything.
They
Although,
want transaction fees. That's
yeah,
their
exactly,
revenue.
100%, 100%, 100%, yeah. And I think, and I think, with what I said with the recent activities, that some people will also drop their tribalism and like their aversion to the XRPL, just because greed, right? Obviously greed. Hey, if it goes up, goes up, goes up, goes up, whatever. Eventually, people will say, you know what? I don't care, but it goes up, right? So this is kind of self-fulfilling prophecy in that sense, that people would just jump in, ask questions, build whatever. Because for every 1,000 or 500 people or 100 people that jumps in, and you have, like, let's say 80% are just moon boys or whatever, you have 10, 20 people who will stick, and 20, and from the 20, maybe 5 or 6 people who are developers, whatever, and all this, and you kind of get a good cut um, for a sustainable growth.
Well, okay. I do think you're sniffing at a positive feedback loop regarding price. And I do think one exists. I don't think that's
Yeah.
the exact mechanism that will unfold, though. What I hope anyway, actually, is will happen. Okay, so take like the AMMs, right? And then a service like Liquidity Hub, because AMMs inherently are two different units of value. Liquidity Hub is supposed to be cross chain, right? So it can be cross chain. If you have all the AMMs on it on Ledger, you can still do transactions in 3 seconds, right? So if you have all of that liquidity flowing through there, then you have, and this is where the feedback loop comes in, because you want to, okay, you build liquidity begets liquidity, right? So you build some liquidity, and then you want to, like, make sure that the depth of liquidity is increasing and it's getting deeper, like more value can flow through, per segment of time, and per like day or whatever. And if you have all these individuals that are able to sort of crowdsource liquidity, and by like depositing value into these AMMs, and that's not even so now you have a situation where you have individuals as a crowd, like crowdsourced, um, competing against institutional liquidity providers, and it's I think it'll make a very interesting market dynamic, but I can totally see it feeding back on itself, because there's really truly, outside of like going and putting your money in a bank and like hoping that your bank like makes a loan to someone and earns a profit on that, you're not, that's not how are you can't really provide liquidity as an individual. You can do the peer-to-peer lending stuff, like Prosper and Lending Club. You can do some of that, but really, the institutional guys came into that market and took over. They had a big enough weight in the market that they basically determine the prices, and the crowd's influence on pricing the loans was gone. It was outweighed. Hopefully that doesn't happen in this market, but you probably will. Hopefully it doesn't. Probably will.
Go ahead, Gene. I saw that.
You saw me toggle. No, I was gonna say Karma's definitely right, but he's definitely right, and it's on the people, the community to communicate with one another, and devs communicate with one another. Like just talking to some devs at Filecoin, it was very pleasant. You would think with all the stuff you hear about Filecoin and IPFS, like it's a lot to deal with, but they're actually an awesome community. And when you talk to them about integration, they're like, yes, we want integration. So there has to be that commonality with those other devs that hey, I want to build with you. I'm a builder and I want to build too. Do you want to build just one house, or do you want to build a neighborhood? And do you want to scale that neighborhood into a city? Well, let's bring all these other neighborhoods together. These neighborhoods have to be able to use these other businesses, and that economy has to grow. So there's always a bigger picture to it, but the tribalism has to go, because crypto won't survive if there's tribalism.
Very well said.
What's that? Isn't there something from? Oh, I don't know if it's from Art of War or what, but like, there's divide and conquer. There's something like a house divided cannot stand. There's a bunch of different sayings to basically say, hey, if you got a group of people and they're going to fuss amongst themselves, then they're not going to work well together, and they're going to fail. Basically.
What's up, NY?
NY Crypto, you there, man?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, it's a little loud in the background.
Welcome up, Tony, as well. If you guys have any questions or any topics you'd like to bring up, please feel free to change the subject. Or John, if you have something you'd like to.
Did John have a question?
No. Go ahead, Tony. If I have something to bring up to change the subject, I'll think of something and kind of go from there. But go ahead.
So I'm seeing XRP budge a little bit, and I'm kind of scared because I can't afford it if it moons. I hope it doesn't moon yet.
Yeah, you run into the issue with the feedback loop, that I'm seeing right now, because everything else is down, and people see it goes up and it goes up, then people say, okay, fuck it, I just gonna jump in, and so on. Can be dangerous, whatever, but it's interesting to see the dynamics.
I still think the macro looks pretty bloody.
The macro looks bloody. This is true.
Yeah, I would agree. The other part of the point I was making there, that was that if the price goes up, then the same units of like XRP, like say 100 XRP, can move more value.
Oh yeah,
and
100%.
It sort of automatically makes the liquidity deeper, just because you have the same number of units, say, in an AMM, so there's still only 100 XRP in the AMM, right? But if XRP is worth $1, then there's $100 of liquidity. If XRP is worth 10, then there's $1,000 worth of liquidity. Like that you'd put the same amount of XRP in, like nothing's changed. It's just the amount of value you can have liquid is improved. So it can really kind of create that positive feedback loop or snowball effect or whatever you want to call it that you're talking. Your
Yeah,
sniffer's on the right thing.
I always sniff on the right things, Karma. Oh, wow.
Oh dear. No,
Yeah,
it is. It's a real. It's a wonder actually that these dynamics and see, and then there's extra dynamics like the fee escalation. So once you start getting enough liquid, well, but there's a negative feedback loop there too, because if you get enough liquidity, you need to do less transactions. Like say I only want to move $100 worth of value. If I have to do 50 transactions to do that, that's one thing. But if like the XRP is worth way more than $100, I can just send like a part of an XRP, and there's in one transaction, and it's super cheap, like one deal. Well, the downside of that is, well, good side and downside is, first, I'm doing less transactions, so I'm not overloading the network. Second, because I'm doing less transactions, like I'm burning and using less XRP, which means, I don't know, that it's just the deflationary
you
aspect.
are, yeah, you are more liquid as well, right? I mean, let's say you have a bunch of XRP, and you are dependent on, let's say, for a short period of time of whatever, to sell this XRP to, I don't know, to hold your float. Then it's nicer if you have just to sell 100 XRP instead of 1,000, right? Because 100 is less, and because of the higher dollar amount. So it helps everyone
Well,
basically,
I
especially
was thinking,
businesses.
the deflationary aspect would actually reduce, because, like, let's say you have a system that moves $1 trillion a year. If it can do that in like, think XRP Ledger. So if you can move $1 trillion a year through XRP Ledger, but it costs you like a billion transaction fees, that's going to be one cost, right? If you could, if the XRP is more valuable, and you can move the same $1 trillion worth of value, but maybe only need to do 1 million fees or transactions instead of 1 billion, you get a lot cheaper fees. And it's not just the fees to the consumer of the liquidity. It's the think from the network's perspective. 1 billion transactions is going to burn a lot more XRP than 1 million transactions. So the billion transactions will be way more deflationary versus the million. So even though the price goes up of XRP, the fact that it goes up means you can probably use less of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm off in Never Never Land. But the more transactions, obviously, the more fees are burned, and less, like, the more deflation, the less XRP are in existence. And I, for some reason, think maybe if the price goes up, it would burn less fees. I could probably also make an argument against that. And then you hit fee escalation. See, price going up could help, reduce fee escalation too, in a sense, because if you have, if you have to move, like, say, a large chunk of value, and you're going through the network, and then if the tokens are worth a lot, although, I mean, I don't know. If you can move more value with less transactions, you're reducing the likelihood of triggering the fee escalation function. which hits everybody.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if I'm not sure I said that quite right, but yeah, if I would think like if I can send one, like if I can send you $100 by sending you like one token, because it just is, worth $100, then that would be less likely to hit versus if I had to send you like 100 single dollar bills, transaction. I mean, I guess we could use path or payment channels, but that's more sophisticated. I don't know.
And I have to trust you.
So, Karma, I have a question for you. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. If you wanted to prevent XRP from being burned as fast as possible, like you wanted to survive as long as possible, what can you utilize besides like the side chains and the trust lines? Can you like set up a system where everybody else can like kind of use their own side chains to build their own networks, and then whenever they wanted to communicate with each other, they would just use like one XRP?
Yeah, that's basically what's happening, as far as I can tell.
Because it makes sense. Then you could literally XRP would last a very long time because it would only be used to have, I guess, the side chains communicate with each other. It wouldn't be used for like retail.
Yeah, or you could basically call it like the settlement layer, like the base layer, really.
Settlement layer. I usually say lowest common denominator, like that kind of a thing. But yeah, that's kind of the point. Yeah, if it's the lowest common denominator, then everything else is relative to it.
Yeah, but it makes a lot more sense in the sense of if there was a lot of value that needed to be transferred through it. Um, and so if you have an asset that has a certain price that it is, it makes more sense for the price of the asset to go up. So you need less of them because if it's network flow that's important and viability of longevity, having the network fee remain low so that less tokens are burned is optimal.
Well, and if the value of the token is higher, then wouldn't you? I guess you'd still be doing the same number of transactions, right? Am I wrong in what I'm saying? I was going to say if the value of the token's higher, you need less units of the value or less units of the token. I mean, to move the same amount of value. But just because you need less tokens for that like amount of value, you're still doing a transaction.
Right, but if you can move more value, you need less transactions. If it's really just like the settlement layer.
Just to kind of like chime in a little bit because I kind of found like a different topic. Um, I want to hear what Kashta has to say about how XRP is looking on the EMA because I first have to say the way he showed me his EMA, it was immaculate. It again, I specialize with not just security algorithms, but fish algorithms as well, which are based on like the Fibonacci. So that I definitely will hear like a different aspect. But then also we want to get back to like that burning aspect because I do have like maybe a proof of concept, or maybe like a theory that should be talked about. What's up, Kashta?
Good, man. But go ahead. I want to hear what you're going with.
Oh man, I'm so excited to hear about just the the EMA, the 3, the 11, the 19. All right, I don't see no more. But
I know, Carson goes through it.
we get excited. But now I was gonna say like maybe for like a burning mechanism, like, and I was talking to Songbirdable about this as well. I gotta give Songbirdable some props because you'll have some like deep conversations with them, and no one will know. You're having those type of conversations with them, so I'll make sure I give kudos to him. But more so for like NFTs, in a sense that you know people getting that JPEG, PJP, or that PNP, PNG, sorry, that MP4, that picture itself, or whatever it is, you could even be a PDF. It's using, that payload in a sense in steganography to actually give that person, you know, that picture. So, for instance, if they don't want to keep it up and trade it, in a sense, there should be a way for someone to convert that payload. There should be something already embedded into the payload being the link. The link itself, when you open up or when you put in a link to a web address, it opens up a website. Just like if it's, a PDF document or any type of file, the payload, can execute that, and it could even be executed like executables in a sense. And you see that with steganography and what they're doing with, with viruses, or even like we could say like JRAT and all that stuff, but kind of looking at the positive end of it, the positive ends of steganography and what it could be used for. More so, if that person's actually going to collect that photo, let's say they pay for this NFT and this NFT is this photo. As an example, mind you, you can substitute photo for anything else. When they want to actually use that photo, let's say they just want to make it their desktop background or their phone background or anything else, it should be something to where they actually own that document. They have that physical, well, it's still not physical, but they still have that file with it as well. And then if you're actually using that file itself, and let's say you don't actually want to sell it at all, you just want the art itself, there should be a way to kind of black hole. There should be maybe even an account setup or account mechanism to kind of black hole it, to where in this black hole, one, you're burning the XRP. There's this burning mechanism, right? But in exchange for burning it, you're getting that, that JPEG, that MP4, whatever that NFT is going to be, you get it on that other end. Does that sound like that's something that could be integrated? Because you look at it now, and I see like certain links could be manipulated. Like you could click on a link or put in a link, right, and then not actually redirect you to that website, or not actually give you what you're paying money for. And I feel like people should actually start getting what they're paying for.
If I could answer your question, Gene, I'd be coding some stuff somewhere for myself, but it's a little bit over my head, to be honest with you. But now I appreciate listening to it. Yeah, it's cool.
Isn't that kind of like how, like, where IPFS comes in play? But I've always kind of wondered the same thing. Like, if I'm going to buy this asset, like I want to own, like I want it like on my machine, like in my possession, like here, like in my room, like on my computer, like downloadable.
Yeah, Carmen, if I could just real quick, I wanted to speak to what y'all were speaking to earlier, right? And I think it goes back to something you stress here often, and rightfully so, right? It's all about liquidity. So as it relates to the price of the asset, the unit of the asset, because you properly deduced that it doesn't really change the amount of transactions based on the value of the asset, because you're still just using less in the same transaction. But what you eventually want is you want a market that is so liquid that you're actually taking advantage of the neutrality of the asset, right? So what I mean by that is like you're able to move all of this value without having to be conscious of moving the market and having some kind of volatility or crisis based on whether your participation ebbs and flows at any given time. right? So the idea of this thing really working really just boils down to liquidity, liquidity, liquidity at the end of the day. And I found it interesting that in Brad's recent video, right, that has been circulating, one of the things that he spoke to that I had already kind of speculated on is they're really having to, and he used the word throttle down demand for ODL, right, because it's outpacing what they can actually kind of facilitate. And for adding some additional words, I'm not quoting him, but he did use throttle down, right? And I've always said that because in order for this thing to really move, you have to have that buy side, right, buying the incoming XRP demand. And that has to be either some type of market maker through agreement or just organic kind of like buy volume based on even like more speculators, whatever it may be. You need that to kind of grease the wheels for this thing to work. So liquidity is the most important thing to all of this. And again, you stressed it from day one. But I think as it applies to price, like that's the only thing that really matters is how liquid do you actually remain as you scale.
Well, it's interesting actually. I love the water analogies with finance because when you're in like deep water, you could be in say 30-foot seas, but it's not. It's more of like a rolling sea. Versus if you're in shallow water with 30-foot seas, you're like up and down and all over the freaking place. And I think what you're saying kind of speaks to the same aspect because, like, if you're in a real deep market, and let's say, I don't know, $100 million or something moves like through this market per day, and you show up with like $1,000, you're not going to change the price. Versus if you show up to a market where only $100 moves a day, and you show up and try and move 1,000 through it, you could completely change that market. That's your shallow water. That's your shallow liquidity. Up, down, versus your deep liquidity is more kind of steady. Hope that made some sense.
No, I really got it, right? It was a perfect way to describe it, right? So I really understand it. But I've always said that I think more people should kind of perceive it that way because again, not only does it work, um, for people who are holding the asset, right? Because the greater the price goes up, but the more liquid that it becomes, it kind of creates that security of having, that some people look at from maybe a code standpoint, right? At the end of the day, code can only protect you so far. But if you have extreme volatility, right, like you're going to be losing, or in the other end you're gaining, but at some point you're on both ends of that right spectrum. And so having that deep liquidity kind of allows you to move in and out of the market, other participants to move out in and out of the market without a whole lot of volatility, right? And that's that kind of ideal situation. Like if we can't get past reducing some of the volatility via deep liquidity, then it just really doesn't work at the end of the day for enterprise type use, right? It just works mostly for speculators.
Hey, Kasha, could I ask you a question? Could you go a little bit deeper into that? Could you break down an example of what you just gave, but using a real life instance, just so that my brain could pick up what you're putting down?
I'll try my best, right? So, essentially, right, we're talking about moving value and the ability to move value cheaper, right? And what the impact of that is, right? And ultimately, it should mean more money remitted into places where it can improve the GDP of those areas where it can stay trapped in, makes the cost of even moving money cheaper, right? So that hopefully it even decreases the cost of goods and services that they don't have that extra price attached to them. So it's just a theory in that perspective, right? That if we can reduce this cost of moving money, like it'll have these ancillary benefits, right, to us all, right? So if you're moving money and say you're having to do it in a very kind of like volatile market like we're in today, right? Then the counterparty risk kind of increases that price right? Or at least inefficiency of your ability to do that, right? And so you don't want that high volatile environment, right? You want an environment that's so liquid that, and it's kind of not just related to the efficiency, but it's also, like I said, the security in that if something happens to me and I can't provide the type of volume that I normally provided to the network on any given day for any given reason, if my participation changes the efficiency of the network, then it's not robust from that perspective, right? And so again, any participant, right, if we're looking at them as central banks or banks, should be able to either drop in or out of the system without it affecting all of the other participants in the system. And that's what deep liquidity eventually does, right? So that's why I keep saying, like, at the end of the day, this is about liquidity, because idealistically, if you're increasing the price and you're also on the other end increasing the demand at the same time, because both of those really have to coexist. Sometimes we only think about it from price, but it also has to have that demand side, right? And when I speak to demand, I'm saying someone willing to buy the asset at any given time, right? For someone who's needing to sell the asset. That's the deep liquidity.
But when
So,
you speak of the sorry to cut you off, on the
no,
demand
go ahead.
side, on the demand side, who are we referring to? Are we referring to everyday individuals, corporations? Like, who's creating the demand that causes the liquidity to flow?
So I'm gonna try to answer that again the best that I can. So I think honestly it entails both, and that's just the reality of the situation. And so sometimes I have referred in public forums to the fact that, like, Stewart ironically publicly said to the central bankers one day, and this video can be found on YouTube, like, speculation is an essential part of making markets. It's always been that way, right? At least a part of the process, right? So in crypto, it's really not any different. And if you allow itself to be proven out, maybe a neutral asset whose value is only really kind of ascertained from the aggregate of the people's willingness to buy it and exchange their time shifted labor into an asset, right, may be the most stable way to do this. The counter is saying a commodity backed asset or something of that nature, right? So that argument is going on. But at the end of the day, that demand has to be articulated. But there's another side to it. So I don't want to ignore the other side. And that is just the market makers of the world who actually make a profit off of high volume, right? And this is one thing that XRP is actually kind of doing that a lot of people are not speaking about, is as all of these transactions are going on, right, facilitating what Brad has now publicly said, billions of dollars that's being transacted on ODL, the market makers are making, even if it's a small percentage, right, they're making a profit as part of a business model to continue that flow of value. And as that, and using Bitso as a perfect example, Bitso was a Bitcoin exchange who made a lot of money off of Bitcoin initially, got introduced to using XRP in a utility way. Now XRP utility through Bitso, Latin America's largest exchange, is not dominated by XRP volume, right? So they're making more actual revenue by facilitating utility via XRP than anything, right? And when that starts to spread, another exchange says, well, in my region, I can make that same like value just off of facilitating the movement of value. And then it starts the flywheel effect that they published as well. So I'm trying to answer your question without rambling, but
No, no, no.
that's what I'm speaking to.
I'm gonna I'm gonna ask
Let
a
me
follow up one. Oh,
let
go
me
ahead.
take a swing at the question, because I think let's consider the question from like the dollar's point of view. So one, you got to pay your taxes. So every year you have some demand, even if you earn your money abroad and you're not maybe residing physically in the United States. If you're a citizen, you pay your taxes. So you have some demand for dollars. So there's that. And then the other thing is, because the dollar is like the global reserve, you actually, like, when the, you know, proverbial like shit hits the fan, like everybody runs to high quality in whatever the global reserve is for the time being, it's the dollar. So that's like the highest quality, like it's better than gold. So everybody runs to that, which, as we have seen currently, drives the value of the dollar up, right? Because more demand for the dollar. So the demand side comes from multiple places.
Gotcha. So I think a follow up question would be to the point of liquidity, right, within the system. So in the example of Bitso, Bitso has its own corridor where Bitso is remitting the way that they want to remit, right? How does Bitso's remittance how does Bitso's remittance impact the liquidity within the XRPL?
Great question. So it makes it more liquid for all of the activity that's going on via those pairs that they're facilitating, right? So now if someone's trying to get dollars in or out of Mexico or any of the other directions that they're able to do it, right? They're able to do it at a cheaper, faster rate, right? Because of the liquidity that's available to them there, right? Now, if they didn't have that volume there, right? Then you potentially have slippage and all of these other things potentially come part of the dynamics that we've learned just didn't work. And so like that's how we evolved to the point where some of these products like the one Ripple is building has come to us, right? It's because those lessons that they've learned and the importance of it. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, but I'm going to follow up. Sorry. And Steak, you're right after me. I promise you, right? So I feel like there's always going to be volatility, right? So I think one of the points you made was in terms of volatility, but how do you reduce, although you could get to a point where you have a fast asset and this and that, but I think that if there's a market downturn or whatever, there's always going to be volatility that exists somewhere.
There's always going to be volatility, but the deeper the liquidity, the less that volatility will have an impact on the surface of the market.
Can you that's a great answer, but can you break into that? Elaborate a little bit on that. My bad. Sorry. Go deep into that.
Well, think of like waves in the ocean, like I just said a couple of minutes ago. Like I've been out way offshore in the Atlantic where it's, I don't know, thousands of feet deep. And we've been in pretty heavy or pretty high seas, but they're kind of rolling seas, right? Like, you can be looking up at the water. But still, it just kind of rolls by. It's not a big deal. And then you get into like, say, on the Gulf where it's real shallow, and you get a storm that's, say, half the wave, like the waves are half the height. So, like, think of the transaction volume being half, like, but it's so shallow that the waves are hitting the bottom of the ocean and they peak up, and it's like a much more violent sea surface. And I think markets kind of function a little bit the same way. If you have a big, deep liquidity, so what? Somebody shoved $1,000 or $1 million through, whatever. No one cares. Like,
Dude,
hundreds of billions of dollars move a day. Like, no one cares about $1 million. Versus if you got a small, shallow market where maybe only $1,000 or $10,000 a day go through. You could try and go shove $1 million through there. You're going to completely swing that market all over the place.
Gotcha. That was actually a great explanation. So the deeper the liquidity, the deeper the ocean. And so the deeper the ocean, the less wave effects there are. So it's almost like ripples. But the closer you are to the surface, there's less liquidity. So with the less liquidity, the closer you are to the surface of the beach, the bigger the waves.
Yeah, the water will stand up more. It gets less rolling. It gets more abrupt or choppy. Or, I mean, ultimately, I guess if you're surfing, it ultimately breaks. But yeah, shallow, because the bottom of the you got to think of a wave. A wave's like a barrel moving through the water. When the bottom of that barrel starts hitting the bottom of the ocean, then it has nowhere to go but up. So it's going to stand the water up. So if you're in shallower water and the wave is moving through, and if it's hitting the bottom because it's shallow, then the water is going to go up. There's nowhere else to go. Like, the energy is embedded in the water. So yeah. But if it's like thousands of feet deep, it could be like a gigantic wave, but no one cares. It just kind of moves on, right? Like the bottom of the wave isn't hitting the bottom of the ocean; it just moves on. You got really deep liquidity. No one cares. So $1 million payment. Oh, cool. Bye. Next, right? Like no one cares. You got super deep liquidity that it smooths things out.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome questions so far. Awesome questions, guys, so far. And Steak, thank you for coming up and raising your hand, man. Go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone. I was pondering on a question as well, but it goes back one question earlier about remittances. So, like in the grand scheme of legislation, I'm wondering, what good is remittance if it isn't compliant?
Well, then you're out of business if you're not compliant.
So basically, remittance is irrelevant if you're not compliant.
Yeah. I mean, I would think you'd get your license revoked and you're out of business.
Exactly. So shouldn't we be looking at markets much more in a compliance sense than in a math sense?
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is why the regulation and stuff is so important. This is why the US not having laws has held the entire industry back so far.
Yeah, the two are certainly married to each other, right?
Yeah, I mean, we gotta have laws. We just need, you can't do this stuff without laws. Like, I don't know anybody that's working on a crypto project that's like, oh, I'm out to break the law. They're like, just tell me the freaking law and I'll do that. But there's just no laws.
So, say for example, your financial asset management fund. You would regard blockchain technology, like you stated many times earlier, as maybe the biggest invention in finance, at least of the past decade, or maybe two. So,
it's the biggest accounting innovation, I think, since double entry accounting.
Right.
Which that was like 14 something, 1500.
Let's speculate realistically. How realistic is it that the entire financial market in one way or another will be on blockchain?
I think that's pretty realistic. Yeah.
Right. Would you say like in a mature market, so hypothetically, we have legislation, we have maturity, we have the tech. Would it make sense for the bonds, derivatives, and forex market to enter blockchain?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So wouldn't that make this period in time probably the most bullish that you can get in crypto?
I would think, but trust me, I'm not exactly bearish. I mean, yeah, I think that there's so much work to be done over the next, say, decade and a half,
Yeah.
5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
There's so much work to be done. I don't know how you could waste time being like sort of bearish or whatnot. Like it's like
maybe on short term.
Well, yeah, but that's nothing happens in the short term.
See, there's only one thing I'm doubting right now, and I hope some of you can chime in on it in order for me to better make up my mind. It's a very egotistical kind of question, but wouldn't it make sense that the market makers of the global economy, like these big giant financial asset management funds, bonds, derivatives, forex, what have you not, wouldn't it make sense that if they eventually buy in on blockchain technology, that they would do so at the absolute bottom of the economy?
I don't know. I mean, they've been involved since the beginning. I mean, you're talking about the JP Morgans, the Goldman Sachs, the Citibanks, the Barclays, the big money center banks, the folks at the middle of the center of the correspondent banking networks. Like these are that's the definition of the quote unquote big boys, or
Right, but
money center
well,
banks,
well,
whatever.
like the
Yeah,
assets that, for example, a BlackRock but also Vanguard
Yeah, but see,
is handling.
BlackRock and Vanguard, they control a lot of assets, right? But they're
Exactly.
not part of the payment system.
No, I know, but like forex bonds market and derivatives, of course, like bond derivatives, forex, especially forex. I mean, it's so incredibly gigantic compared to what's in blockchain right now. It's just it's
Well,
kind of mind-boggling still.
most of your forex, I would bet, I don't know this, but I would bet most of your forex is going to be run by like trading desks at the money center banks like JP Morgan, Goldman, Citi, Barclays, etc.
Yeah, but we would be able to buy in on those blockchain projects, right?
I'm not sure. Okay, maybe I'm missing the point.
No, the thing is that I'm wondering if you're saying you're making a valid point for me at least to doubt myself. Like you're saying, well, they already bought in, all of them. So where is the incentive for it to go even lower? Like they already bought in. They don't need a lower price. But in my opinion, there's a lot of liquidity in the world on the sidelines right now that's just waiting to buy in at the point of market maturity, or maybe in increasing market share. So for me, it would make a lot of sense if they want to bleed the entire global economy first before they buy in. But maybe it's just poor conjecture on my part.
I mean, I kind of see what you're saying, and don't take this the wrong way.
No, I don't.
It has a twinge of like everything pre-planned type of thinking. I tend to not think everything's pre-planned and like shit just happens. So I'm not usually into these conspiracy things where the Illuminati or whatever, all this nonsense.
Neither am I. Neither am I.
But
right.
I mean, I'm not trying to discount what you're saying. I can see them finding themselves in a situation where we just had a pandemic and like inflation, like monetary policy has been on steroids. Like
Right.
all of a sudden, all the sort of ingredients are in the air to
Right.
to take this step forward, and I can see them being smart enough, like recognize that set of situations and be like, oh, maybe we ought to take this step forward, right? Like, ooh, I don't know, should we? Let's think about this. This is a
Well,
big step.
it's not just crypto, right? But it's more like the big money players, like maybe the Saudis, for example, in fossil fuels. It would make sense for them to buy in when the market is at its lowest to increase market share. So they'll wait until the very end
I,
because they
I
have the
don't think
deepest
it's
pockets.
I guess I don't think it's about the market in terms of price. I think it's about the market in terms of the market's like maturity and what the market's capable of accomplishing. Because a market that like freezes up and can't do anything is just as useless as a broken engine. Like cool hunk of metal, but nobody cares. It doesn't do anything.
I can see some sense in that, but there's just so much money has been made during COVID, not just with the printing, but also like it all went to the wealthy, and none of it is in the actual economy. There's a big liquidity problem everywhere,
Yeah,
and, and
that's
and we even see it at the top. Like this week, 2 days ago, Ford, General Electric, and Chrysler, and even Tesla have problems with their orders, so they're not buying any spare parts anymore. They're just selling out their stock. So there's basically, is there some sort of bullwhip effect going on there?
yeah.
There is. You guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
And I
Have
just
you
I
Sure.
just want
guys,
to say
are you aware of the pension pot cap being lifted? Do you guys know what that is?
I can't really comprehend what you're saying because of the background noise, but something with pension funds?
There is actually a pension pot, and they had $1 trillion cap on it, okay, by the SEC. And what that is that if one of the clearing partners fails, the pensions will kick in $1 trillion to cover that loss of the pension partner. You guys can hear me, right?
Right.
yep.
That has been lifted by the SEC to 38 trillion last week, and nobody even blinked an eye about that.
38 trillion. Ah, that isn't pocket
Yes.
change.
So now, if there, that is not pocket change. So derivatives are being fucking blown up right now. They have an option to raise the pension funds to up to $38 trillion. From $1 trillion to $38 trillion, that's not pocket change, and that is downright frightening.
Yeah, it is. That's a 40x. Almost a 40x.
Well, that just lets the pension funds run a deficit. Not a It's not like they're creating money. They're just, well, I mean, in some sense, I guess you could make an argument they are, but not really.
Oh, Jesus
I did.
Christ.
I don't know why they would do this, but I don't think pension funds are going to last
How do
the
you
test
guys
of
do
time.
this? Like seriously, how do you guys do this? You find some nugget of knowledge every time, and you just go deeper and deeper into the fucking rabbit hole. It's just Jesus fucking Christ.
I mean,
Well, I mean,
I've
just
been
how
in this game now for like 20 years, so I've been watching this stuff for a while, and it's here. This
Right.
is the end game. You know what I mean? I knew back after the '08 crisis that the banks were able to take your money and make you a shareholder. So the bailouts are illegal, but the bail-in is. So they have a right
Huh.
to seize your money in your account and make you a shareholder of the bank. That's already law. Jim Rickards put that out there, and I've been telling people that, but this just came around 2 weeks ago, and that is astounding that nobody's saying anything about that. I mean, it's not right. But what are you going to do? These pension funds, if they're so bad and so over leveraged with some of these investment funds, have a choice to get this stuff done. And like Carmen said, they're so underfunded already. You know, people like GE have problems with their pensions. I mean, they're in serious trouble. You know.
That's exactly what's happening. They're
So
already
let's so how can you not say that this isn't looking like a bubble even bigger than 2008? How can we say that 2008 is not going to happen again? I mean,
because it's not the system falling apart like a
then it's not the
2008.
system falling apart. Do you know how many people cannot actually pay their energy bill in Europe?
Yeah, but those are market participants. They live and
Market
die.
participant. Well, if people revolt, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, but the thing is, as long as they live in revolt inside of how the system works. Sorry, I had a call. The you just the '08 in like 1929, and there was a couple times in the late 1800s, and like during the Civil War, England, they all these different, when England was the main money center of the world. I mean, this shit happened. It happens, and so yeah. But as long as like it doesn't matter, and this sounds terrible to say, but it doesn't matter if a bunch of people go bankrupt and whatever. Like no one cares. I mean, they care, but nobody else really cares. The system doesn't care. You don't want the system to break. That's the difference. In like '08, you were looking at the system breaking. You weren't.
How can a pension fund that's increasing that much not break the system?
Well, what they're doing is an accounting
Well,
trick. They're
yeah, you're
over.
not really breaking the system now. You know.
Well, they're overextended, right? So they're going to increase their sort of statutory or accounting the amount of leverage they're allowed to have. That'll bring them back into compliance because they changed the rules to meet reality instead of changed reality to meet the rules. And it's just another step forward to these pension funds getting over leveraged and going bankrupt and going away. And they're going to be gone and they're not coming back.
Well, cheers for explaining that, man. Thanks.
I mean, I've got buddies that are firemen and stuff, and I'm like, they're like, oh, yeah, I got a pension. And I'm like, yeah, no, you don't, man. Good luck on that one. We'll see how that pans out. Talk to me in 20 years.
Yeah, sadly, I agree.
You know,
Yeah. And Kasha, go
these
ahead, man, if you
pension- Go ahead.
Sorry, and I think Akasha, and then we'll have to close up at closing up at 5 o'clock. So, man, if you want to finish it up, and Greek, if you want to, then chime in, and we'll end the space.
Okay, yeah, I'll make it real quick, man. So basically, state the way I would kind of answer it is like, really, if we look at it, even kind of throw the crypto kind of aspect of it to the side for a minute, the whole world has been looking for a place to kind of receive these gains, right, from where everything else has been, from most people's perspective, just kind of like a shell game to find gains, right, in the previous dynamics that they've had, right? So if they've identified these new markets as a way to eventually bring those gains back, right, then you can kind of then extrapolate what those gains mean and what their impact means, right? And I think that's the realization that we can kind of look towards is how and what the real justification of this participation means in a practical way.
Thank you.
I mean, if I could finish it up here, guys, let's face it. We hold XRP. I've been holding for a while. And if there is a liquidity crisis or whatever the case may be, when this thing does what it does, we are going to have access to capital to buy these other investments. And like Kasha said and everyone else, when you diversify, we're going to have such an opportunity to buy treasury bonds probably at 5%. Dividend pay stocks are 8 or 9% because they're going to have to compete to give people attractive yield on it. So this is truly a fascinating time that we're going to be in right here. And going forward, when it comes time to diversify, we're going to have the bargains of a lifetime to have an income stream set up that's going to be not really risk-free, but pretty riskless, if you ask me.
Oh, that was well said. I really like that. Thank you for that sentiment. Xavier, if you came up, man, if you want to say something, we'll close it out right after. But I just want to say,
Yeah.
thank.
I would love to just think that if we don't see this as being worse than '08, right now the only reason that we have any kind of liquidity is because we still have credit in the United States. I'm under the impression that this is going to be a lot worse than what I'm hearing y'all talk about. Understanding the game is part of it, and right now we're not. And 10 times this is where actually the world is it's in dire straits. And just because we're in the United States, we think it's not going to affect us. I think our credit is going to destroy us. This would, as soon as they take out, if we don't have credit tomorrow here in the United States, where are any of y'all at financially?
Yeah, but I don't see that happening. That's more of an '08 type thing. When all the credit dried up, the spreads blew out, the markets froze,
The only reason
everything.
The only reason we have credit now is because we're printing money, and not even printing money. We're just going incredible. That's there wasn't this kind of printing going on in '08. This is a disaster. This is an absolute disaster. And to understand that we just can't keep printing money with nothing backing our money and having the world still want to accept our dollars for absolutely no reason with nothing backing it. I can't understand how y'all would think that this isn't as bad as '08. in '08, what was our national debt?
Yeah, well,
So
just
on,
real
so
quick, I
on.
want to say I really agree with that whole premise, right? So, like, my hedge to the whole credit going bad is that it tends to historically say that these assets also appreciate. So, if I'm wrong there, then I'm just going to be among the wrong. But historically, it is proven the other way around. So, that I agree to your thesis, right? And
Yes.
I'm actually hedging my bet to that side. But at the end of the day, history has just said if that environment rears itself, it just causes an appreciation to the assets that we hold.
America is the only country, sorry to cut you off, Costa, that exports its own inflation because we're pegged to the oil. So
But we're playing with a fiat dollar. How many how many checks with no funds would you take before you go, no, I'm not going to do business with you anymore? And that's what we have with the rest of the world. We have a strong military. We are printing an incredible amount, and for us to go, that really doesn't count. We don't. What is our gross domestic product? What are we producing here? As soon as it cuts down, as soon as we eliminate that, where are we at? We don't produce what we used to produce in the past. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
yeah, but we still have a manufacturing working force. We still have
Well,
Really,
yeah,
manufacturing
what
working
Most of
force.
but
the economy,
but think of
most of the economy is
it this way, right quick. The
and
money only had for most of us. It only has. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
yeah. Let me say one quick thing. Most of the economy is consumer driven, and when you think of like the taxes and like what backs dollars, it's the taxes. So most of
No,
the
I mean it's the derivative.
consumer.
Right now, the banks are in total derivative. Not only ours, but all over the world are in complete debt. They are leveraged extremely high. I mean, once we
Right. But
Yeah,
why are we still having
let's.
credit? Why do we still have credit? And right now is that they don't want this game to end. When they're ready, they will have the game ended. We will find out what it is not to have credit because we don't produce enough.
they're not going to end. The fractional reserve business model, by like definition, creates leverage. That's where the credit creation occurs. Like it's the commercial banks that print most of the money, not the central bank.
So being in a Ponzi scheme is a good thing. Is that what you're telling me? I mean, because this is
No,
a Ponzi scheme. We are
Well,
printing money
Karma,
with
Karma,
nothing
didn't you?
backing it.
Sorry, Xavier, didn't you say, Karma, that they're trying to get rid of commercial banks?
no, I don't think they're going to get rid of commercial banks. You'd get rid of the credit creation and the elasticity, and that would be a really bad idea.
And
No.
I
So
hate to,
just real
uh,
quick. Hold on, just
but
real quick, Def, and I'll make it real quick. But this is all
yeah,
I'm
go
trying to
ahead.
say, Xavier. This comes down to leverage at the end of the day. So a lot of us have identified the problem that you're addressing, but we don't have the leverage to compel the people who are actually making the decisions to continue the Ponzi scheme to not exist at the end of the day, right? So all we have to do is kind of like leverage ourselves, right, the
The
best that
re-
we can within those dynamics and pull
I
away
agree
from
with.
what we can from their control, and then we have to participate where we're compelled to participate, and that's really just the best answer that I can give you.
Like I
It's
said,
leverage
no,
at
no,
the end of the
I'm
day.
okay. I'm okay with the way y'all. Anyway, I'm just preparing for something because what a trillion seconds from now is 32,500 years from now. We act like, it's just chump change. We can't pay it back. The banks can't pay it back. All it takes is one of these banks, and it doesn't have to go here. It can go somewhere in Germany. It can go anywhere, and they're all interlocked together. We can't support. Where are we going to get your? Where are you going to get your credit? If Citibank and all the banks are closed down. And you say it can't happen. Take a look at how leveraged Bank of America is. I believe, and I don't know the exact numbers, but if they own $1 billion in assets, they're leveraged to $50 billion. What's going to happen?
Well,
They
that's
can't
just how
pay
banks
off the debt.
work.
So I hate.
That's literally just how banks work. But yeah, Death,
I,
go ahead. We
yeah,
gotta start moving on.
definitely pick this conversation up maybe a little bit later on if everybody's still on Twitter Spaces. But we're gonna end this space right here. Great. It's been a great conversation so far
Great
today.
conversation.
Yeah, I really do. I thank everybody for coming up, especially the speakers, right? Who come, you guys give your ideals and your opinions, and I love to hear everybody else's different thoughts. It's so important to have uh, such a diverse, you know, thoughts from the community coming up, because it really lets you see all of the different points of views. But I love you guys, and hopefully I see you guys later on.
Have a cold one for me.
Thanks, man. Talk to you later, everyone.
And I gotta do the obligatory. None of this is financial advice, and the speakers don't represent Ledgerscale Foundation. But we genuinely do appreciate everybody joining and
Yeah,
asking questions.
we definitely didn't talk about finance. None of that.